You know that feeling. When you're doing everything right, working harder than anyone around you, sacrificing things you tell yourself you'll get back, and still feel like you're barely holding on. This is that story, times 7. There's a game being played inside every glass tower, every trading floor, every private equity fund in the world. Most people never see the inside of it. Some people spend their entire lives chasing the entrance, and a very few, make it all the way through. What does it cost them? What does it take? And what, if anything, is waiting on the other side? This is not a story about how to get rich. This is a story about what happens to a person when they try. 7 levels, 7 lives, 1 person. Pay attention to what he gives up, because by the end, you might not remember when it happened.
If this is the kind of story that stays with you, you already know what to do. Follow along. The next 6 levels are where it gets real.
The market opens in 7 minutes. You've been here since 5:12 a.m., not because anyone asked you to be, because you learned in week 1 that the partner who walks the floor early notices who's already at their desk. He doesn't say anything, he just notices, and at this level, being noticed is everything. You are 23 years old. 6 months ago, you were in a lecture hall. You had a plant on your windowsill. You had a group chat. You had weekends. Now you have 3 screens and a badge that gets you into a building most people walk past without looking up. The coffee is from the machine in the pantry. It comes out of a spout and it tastes like hot water that once had a conversation with a coffee bean. You drink it because you cannot leave your desk long enough to get the real thing. The Starbucks in the lobby doesn't open until 6. Your lower back hurts. It started around week 3. You haven't mentioned it to anyone. You've learned quickly that the threshold for complaint in this building is very high. Someone once mentioned being tired in front of a VP. The VP stared at them for a long moment and said, "We're all tired." Nobody mentioned it again. Your desk smells like takeout boxes and dry erase markers. There's a blazer on the back of your chair because the AC runs at a temperature that assumes you're not human. You eat lunch at your desk. You format footnotes while chewing. You stop tasting food somewhere around month 2. You have $112,000 in student loan debt. You make more than your father ever did at your age. You have less free time than he ever had at any age. There's a pitch deck on your desk. Codename Project Olympus, mid-cap industrial supplier. A private equity fund wants to acquire it, lever it up, and extract the costs. You don't know that last part yet. You just know you have to update the historical financials because someone in tax found a restatement. You open the model. It's enormous. 47 tabs, circular references that make the whole thing hum. You navigate it the way you'd walk through a dark house, carefully, slowly, touching the walls. And then you see it. Row 312, the working capital schedule. The senior associate assumed 45 days on receivables, but you pulled the actual filings last week. It's 62 days. The difference in the free cash flow projection across the full 5-year model is just under $3 million. You highlight the cell. You stare at it for a long time. Your first instinct is to walk over to his office, show him, be the person who caught something. You want the nod. You want him to say, "Good catch." You haven't had a good catch yet. You want one. Then you look at his door. It's closed. He's on with the client. You think about the analyst from 2 months ago, the one who pointed out a director's error in front of a client. He wasn't wrong. He was accurate. He was also gone within a quarter. Not because he was wrong, because he was visible in the wrong moment. And visibility at this level is not an asset. It is a liability. You fix the number in your own file. You save it. You say nothing to anyone. You tell yourself it's because you don't want to embarrass him, but that's not the real reason. The real reason is you are learning the rules of a language nobody wrote down. You are learning them by watching what happens to people who break them. One night, it's past 2 in the morning. The floor is empty except for you and the IT guy rebooting servers. You stand up to stretch. Your back locks for a second. You wince. You walk to the window. The city is lit up below you. 40 floors of glass and light, and the faint sound of a taxi somewhere far below. And then something happens. Something you didn't expect. The model balances. You left a rounding error open for 4 hours, and while you were standing at the window, something in your brain finished the problem. You walk back to your desk. You find it. You fix it. You press F9 to recalculate. 0. Perfect 0. You lean back in your chair. It is 2:17 in the morning. There is no one to tell. There is no one who would understand why this feels like winning, but it does. In this moment, it genuinely does. You smile at a spreadsheet alone in an empty room. This, you think, is the best feeling you have ever had sitting by yourself. You don't know yet what it will cost to keep chasing it. You open the next file.
3 years pass. You don't feel them pass. You feel the deal codes. You feel the 11 p.m. comments on a deck you spent 40 hours building. You feel the one relationship that ended not with a fight, but with a silence that started on a Tuesday and never stopped. Her name was Priya. She was a teacher. She had a laugh that made rooms feel smaller and warmer. She left a note. It said, "I don't think you're coming back. Not from wherever you are. I hope I'm wrong." You read it at your desk. You folded it. You put it in the inside pocket of the blazer on your chair. You sat back down. You opened the model. You still have the note. You've never read it again. You're in the room now, not the room where decisions get made, the side room, the one with the extra chairs and the bottled water nobody drinks. But the door is open. You can hear the conversation at the table, and that matters. Distance is measured differently at this level. You're working on a carve-out, a packaging manufacturer in Tennessee. 2 plants, 400 employees. The parent company wants it gone by fiscal year end. Your job is the standalone cost model. When you separate a business from its parent, you have to estimate what it costs to survive alone. No shared IT, no shared HR, no corporate umbrella absorbing the shocks. You're building a financial picture of independence for a company that didn't ask for it. You sit across from the CFO for the first time. Her name is Margaret. She has been with this company for 19 years. She knows every machine on the floor, every customer who pays late, every supplier you can push. When she talks about the business, she uses the word we, not the company, we. She asks about the working capital target in the purchase agreement, whether there is flexibility in the collar. You look at your model, you look at her, you say, the adjustment mechanism is based on a 12-month average. There's a 10% collar on either side. You don't say what you're thinking. You're thinking that if the deal closes, and it will close, the new owners will move headquarters to Dallas within 18 months. Her job will be redundant. She knows this. You can see that she knows this in the way she holds her pen, very still, like she's waiting for something she's already decided to accept. The deal closes. You get a bonus. The number on the wire confirmation is more than your mother's house is worth. You look at it for 20 minutes, trying to feel something proportional. You don't. You wire it to savings and go back to work. Margaret's division moves to Dallas. You don't find out what happens to her specifically. You don't look it up. That's not indifference, you tell yourself. That's professionalism. You believe that for a while. One night, you're at a bar with other associates. Someone, 2 drinks in, asks whether anyone ever feels bad about a deal. The question sits in the air for 3 full seconds. Someone makes a joke about splitting the tab. The moment evaporates. You didn't answer. Not because you didn't have an answer, because you checked inside yourself and found something you weren't prepared for. You didn't feel bad. You didn't feel good. You felt efficient. That was the word. Efficient. You walk home alone. You pass a couple on a park bench laughing about something you can't hear. You wonder briefly what that feels like to have nowhere to be. Then you think about the buyer list due Thursday, and the thought passes. If you know someone living this right now, or someone who used to, send this to them. They probably won't say much, but they'll know you saw them. Tier 3. The Vice President. They make you Vice President. Your parents take you to dinner. Your mother cries a little. Your father shakes your hand with both of his, the way he does when he means it. You don't tell them what Vice President actually means in this world. You don't want to take anything from them. What it actually means, you're middle management with a better title and a car account. You manage a team now, 3 analysts, 2 associates. You don't ask if they've slept, you ask if the deck is ready. You hear yourself and recognize the voice. It's the voice of every VP you watched and thought, I'll be different. You are not different. You are efficient. Your first solo transaction is a dividend recapitalization. Most people have never heard this term. Here's what it means in plain language. A company borrows money, not to build something, not to hire anyone, not to grow, but to write its private equity owners a large check, right now. The company gets the debt, the owners get the cash, the workers get the same jobs with a balance sheet that now has to service that debt every quarter instead of investing in itself. It's legal, it's standard, it's what the market does. The company is a chain of urgent care clinics, 37 locations across the Southeast. A doctor named Reeves founded it. He sold majority control to a fund 4 years ago to expand. The fund wants its money back now, without selling. So they borrow $160 million. The urgent care chain's balance sheet goes from clean to leveraged overnight. You run the lender presentation. The numbers work. The debt markets are hungry. The deal closes in 8 weeks. The fund wires the proceeds to its investors. Your firm collects a fee. You collect a bonus. The urgent care chain now spends $12 million a year on interest payments. That's $12 million that won't go towards hiring nurses, won't go towards opening the clinic in the county that's been requesting one for 3 years. You don't think about the county. You think about the next deal. Here's what shifts at this level. You stop asking whether something is good or bad. Those are questions for people who have the luxury of watching from the outside. You start asking whether it clears, whether the market takes the paper, whether the return justifies the structure. It's not cynicism, it's adaptation. The environment selects for a certain kind of thinking, and over time, that thinking becomes the only kind you do. One night, you're at your desk late. Your phone rings. It's your dad. He asks how work is going. You say busy. He asks what you're working on. You say you can't really talk about it. He says he understands. He says he's proud of you. You hang up. You stare at the screen. The model is open. The numbers are green. You sit there for a moment, not working, not thinking about the deal, just sitting. Then you go back to the model. That pause, that small, still moment between your father's voice and the spreadsheet gets shorter every year. You don't track it, but it does.
Tier 4. The Director. The title says Director. What it means is you're originating now. You're not executing deals anymore. You're finding them. And finding deals has nothing to do with spreadsheets. You lost a mandate last quarter, $300 million, sell side. A founder was taking his industrial business to market and chose another bank. You didn't lose because your valuation was wrong. You didn't lose because your materials were weak. You lost because the founder plays golf every Saturday morning with a banker from a competing firm. They've been playing together for 11 years. You can't outmodel 11 years of Saturday mornings. That's the lesson at this level. The deal doesn't live in the pitch deck. The deal lives in the relationship that happened before anyone opened a pitch deck. The numbers are the language you speak after the handshake. The handshake happens somewhere else. A golf course, a private dining room, a flight to a city you'll spend 6 hours in just to have one meal. You maintain a book of relationships worth 8 figures in annual fees. Each one requires maintenance, calls that aren't about anything specific, a note when something important happens in their life. You know the names of their children, not because you're warm, because you're thorough. There was a year between associate and director where you almost left. A friend from college, Marcus, was starting something, an actual company, a logistics software business. He needed a CFO. The salary was nothing. The equity was maybe something. You had lunch with him twice. You modeled the cap table on a napkin. You stayed. Marcus's company sold for $41 million 3 years later. You found out on LinkedIn on a Tuesday. You were on a call with a client. You minimized the tab. You kept talking. You still think about that lunch, not with regret exactly, with the particular feeling of a door that's been closed long enough that you stopped checking if it's locked. Your brother calls from home. He teaches high school history in the town you grew up in. He coaches JV basketball on Thursdays. He called to say his daughter, your niece, said her first word. You were in Luxembourg. You sent a gift, something expensive, something that said, "I was thinking about you," without requiring you to have actually been present. It arrived a week late. He didn't mention it. You didn't ask. At a commitment committee, a $600 million term loan, the credit team flags covenant concerns. You listen carefully. Then you vote yes. Not because the credit is clean, because the sponsor is one of the top 3 private equity funds in the world. If you say no to this deal, you lose the next 5, and the next 5 are worth more than this one loan. It's a portfolio decision dressed as a credit decision. Every significant decision at this level is. You fly home. You get in the car waiting at the curb. You look at your phone. There's a photo from your brother, his daughter, 7 months old, laughing at something off camera. You look at it for a long time. Then the car pulls up to your building and you go inside. Next year, you'll slow down. You'll be more present. You've been saying next year for 3 years now. Next year doesn't come, it just becomes this year. And this year looks exactly like last year. Most people watching this are somewhere in the first 4 tiers. Some of you are right in the middle of it right now. Drop a comment, just the tier number, no explanation needed. You'll be surprised how many people are exactly where you are. Tier 5, the Managing Director. Managing Director. The title means you've arrived. That's what people think. What it actually means, you don't run models, you don't run processes, you run relationships, and you run defense. You manage 12 key clients, each one worth between $3 and $40 million a year in fees. You are no longer the bank's representative. You are the bank's relationship. If you walk out the door, the relationship walks out with you. That is your leverage, not your title, not your salary. The fact that you are irreplaceable in a way the institution cannot easily replicate. It took you 15 years to become irreplaceable. You didn't plan it that way. It just turns out that's how long it takes. There is a call on your calendar today from a finance ministry, not a banker, the minister himself. He wants to understand market sentiment before a sovereign bond issuance. He doesn't want data. He wants your read, your feel for the room. You take the call from your office. The view is of the river. You give him a sense, a direction, not numbers, a feeling. He trusts your feeling because you have been right before. You have been right before because you have been watching this particular river for 15 years and you know how it moves before the current shows up in the data. That's what this level is. Pattern recognition accumulated over so much time that it no longer feels like analysis. It feels like instinct. But here is what nobody tells you about this level. One night, it's late, you're in the car home, your phone shows a message from your daughter. She's 21 now, in university. She's been in a photography program. You haven't seen her work. You look at the calendar on your phone. There's a client dinner Friday. Tokyo office is in town. You look at her message for a long time. You write back, "I'm going to try. I'll let you know Thursday." Thursday, you write, "I'm so sorry. Next one, I promise. Proud of you." She replies with a single emoji, a small wave. Not angry, not cold, just a small wave. Like she expected it. Like she stopped being surprised somewhere along the way and you missed the exact moment that happened. That wave stays with you longer than anything from the Tokyo dinner. You don't talk about it.
There is no one in your professional circle to talk about it with, and your personal circle, the one that used to exist, has narrowed to almost nothing over years of canceled plans and missed dinners and the particular loneliness of being surrounded by people who want something from you. You get home at 11. The apartment is quiet and exactly as you left it. You pour a glass of water. You stand at the kitchen window. For the first time in a long time, you think, what is this for? The thought stays for about 40 seconds. Then your phone buzzes. London has a question on the term sheet. You answer it. If this is hitting different than you expected, the like means more here than most places. It tells us to keep making things that don't look away. Tier 6. The partner. There are 11 of you. Your name is on the letterhead. This changes things in ways that are difficult to describe to someone who hasn't experienced it. You're not earning a salary anymore in the traditional sense. You have capital in the fund, a share of the carry, which is the percentage of profits above the target return. When the fund performs, your net worth compounds in a structurally different way from any paycheck you've ever received. You stop thinking in years. You think in fund cycles. 7 years from first close to final distribution. Every decision you make today is a decision you'll live with across that entire horizon. You become a different kind of patient. You led a platform acquisition last year, specialty chemicals distributor, $2.1 billion. You structured it through holding companies in Luxembourg and the Cayman Islands, both entirely legal, confirmed by 2 of the most respected law firms in the world. The tax efficiency across the fund lifecycle saves your investors $11 million a year. Over 7 years, that's real money. That's the job. You sign the final documents in this conference room. You shake hands. You get in the car to the airport. You don't feel elation. You feel completion. The deal is closed. The next one is already open. There are 3 calls on your calendar today. One from a pension fund in Canada. They want to increase their allocation to your next fund. The people they represent, teachers, nurses, public servants, will depend on your returns in their retirement. You think about this sometimes. Not often, but sometimes. One from a family office in Singapore. They want to co-invest on the next deal. One from the CEO of a portfolio company. She needs to discuss a refinancing before a covenant test. She built the company from 30 employees to 300. She is exceptional. She is also now running a company whose capital structure you designed around a return target she had no say in. She makes it work anyway. You respect her for that. You take all 3 calls, back to back, from the back of a car. The consequences of what you do are real. You know they are real, but they are spread across so many transactions, so many structures, so many layers of capital that they no longer arrive as individual moments. They arrive as aggregate outcomes. EBITDA margins, fund returns, IRRs. You don't meet the employees of the companies you own. You meet the management teams. The distance between your desk and the actual human beings your decisions affect is the widest it has ever been. You know this. You don't close the distance, because closing it would require a kind of sustained attention that the job doesn't leave room for. And also, if you're honest, because you're not sure what you would do with what you found there. One evening, there's a dinner. Other partners. A deal comes up. A restructuring that resulted in plant closures in the Midwest. 300 jobs. The conversation moves on in under 90 seconds. No one dwells. You don't dwell either. But later, alone, you have a thought you don't say out loud. You think, I used to be the person who would have noticed that. I used to be the person who would have sat with that for longer than 90 seconds. You're not sure when that changed. You're not sure you want to know.
Tier 7. The Chairman Emeritus. You are 74 years old. You have been inside the machine for 51 years. The machine was here before you. It will be here after. You don't carry a title anymore. There's just a name, a family office, a foundation that funds education programs in 3 countries, started 14 years ago for reasons you've never fully articulated publicly. A set of investments held through structures in multiple time zones. Total assets under management is a number known to 5 people. You are one of them. You advise now. You sit on 4 boards. You take calls from people who run countries, not because you have authority over them, but because you have seen enough cycles to know what the next one looks like before it shows up in the data. You know what liquidity stress smells like before it reaches the headlines. You know what political risk feels like in a room before anyone in the room names it. Your calendar is almost empty. A breakfast with a former central banker, a call with a sovereign fund, a board meeting by video, and dinner with your grandchildren on Friday. You protect the dinner. You have moved everything else around it, every single week. You didn't do this when your children were young. You know that. You do it now because it is the only thing you can still correct. Your youngest daughter is 43. She runs a nonprofit in Cape Town, education access for girls in underserved communities. She is, by all measures, doing more visible good in the world than you have ever done. She calls every few weeks. There is a warmth to the calls, and also a politeness, a slight careful quality that wasn't always there. You don't know exactly when it arrived. You suspect it arrived around the time of the photography showcase, or maybe earlier. Maybe the wedding anniversary trip you canceled. Maybe the first day of school you missed. You have never asked her. She has never raised it. And so it lives between you, acknowledged by neither, felt by both. You are not lonely. That's the wrong word. You are particular. You have curated your life down to what matters, and what matters is a very small, very specific list. One morning, you're sitting here in this study. The market is open somewhere. You're not watching it, you're reading. The phone doesn't ring. You trained people not to call before 10. And you think about the beginning. The analyst desk, the cold coffee, the 3 screens, the model that balanced at 2:17 in the morning. The feeling that if you just worked harder and longer and smarter, you'd arrive somewhere. That arrival was somewhere ahead of you, always just ahead. You arrived. You are here. And the thing nobody told you, the thing you couldn't have understood until you were sitting in this chair, is that arrival doesn't feel the way you imagined it. It doesn't feel like the moment the model balanced. That feeling, that pure, clean, solitary joy at 2 a.m., that was the feeling. That might have been the best version of it. Everything after was accumulation. Power, yes. Influence, yes. A life most people would call extraordinary. But also, a note folded in a blazer pocket never reopened. A small wave from a daughter who stopped being surprised. A niece's first word heard secondhand. A lunch with Marcus, modeled on a napkin, and the door that closed. After. All of it stacked inside you. The analyst, the associate, the VP, the director, the MD, the partner. Each one still in there. Each one necessary. Each one costly. The game doesn't end. It just changes shape. You close your eyes. The return. Somewhere in a glass tower in a city that hums with money, a 23-year-old sits down at a desk. The badge says Analyst, Year 1. The coffee is from the machine in the pantry. It still tastes like warm cardboard. Her back already hurts a little from the chair. She doesn't mention it. There's a model open on her screen. She doesn't know yet that the model is wrong in row 312. She doesn't know that she will find it, that she will fix it quietly, say nothing, and learn something about visibility that no one will ever say out loud to her. She doesn't know that the levels are not just promotions, they are transformations, and every transformation asks you to leave something behind. The question, the only question that actually matters, is whether you chose what you left
or whether you just looked up one day and it was already gone. She opens the next tab. The market opens, and somewhere, someone is watching this, nodding, maybe recognizing a tear, maybe recognizing themselves, maybe thinking, I'll do it differently. Maybe they will. The game doesn't end. It just changes shape. If you made it here, you're not the kind of person who looks away. Neither are we. Subscribe if you want to keep seeing the stories nobody else is telling. The next one goes somewhere most people never look. And if this one stayed with you, share it with one person. Just one. That's how stories like this survive.